Alright, USA's Navy FAC, AFCCEC, and NASA UFG 341119.0020th April 2006 preparing activity of the Navy FAC, replacing them without changing UFGS 056529 September 1999 Unified Facility Guide Specifications. Reference an agreement with the UMRL in July 2014 section of the Table of Contents Division 2034, Section 341119.0020 Welding Crane and Railroad Thermite Welding 406 April of 2006. Part 1 General References 1-2 submittals, quality assurance, 1131, operator's qualification, acceptance, weld, procedure qualification, written procedure, manufacturer procedure, welding procedure qualification, required data, welding procedure required, qualification, welds, delivery and storage, receipt, inspection of all thermite weld kits, material and control. Part 2, products and materials. Part 3, execution sequence of operation, railroad preparation, rail alignment, placing with molds, preheating rail ends, ignition of thermite, mold removal, joint finishing and joint records. And to 3.2, inspection, testing, visual inspection, non-destructive inspection. 3.2.3, hardness, end of section of table contents. Alright, Unified Guides Facility, reference an agreement with the UMRL, July 2000, Welding Crane and Railroad Rail Thermite Thermite Method 0406. Note the guide specification covers the requirements of welding crane, railroad, welding crane rail, and railroad rail thermite processes. Adhere to the UFC 130, UFC 1300-02 Unified Facility Specification Format Standards, editing the specification, preparing new project sections as this guide specification, project specification requirements, adding, deleting, revising text for bracketed items, choose applicability, insert applicable information, remove information requirements are not required with respect to project, whether or not the brackets are present, comment, suggestion, recommendation, change for these guide specifications and welcome should be submitted with the criteria change and notice. Criteria change request. Note the following information should be shown on the project drawing. Location of the well. Part 1. General references. Note the paragraph is used to list the publications and cited within the text. The guide specification publications are referred to in the text. Basic generation only listed the paragraph. Organization, designation, design, designation, date, and title. Use the reference wizard check for the feature which is added to the RID outside section reference article. Automatically place the reference in the reference article. Also use the reference wizard check for the reference features to update the issue. Reference not used in the text will automatically be deleted with the section of the project specifications you choose to reconcile references to publish the process. Publications listed below are part of the specifications extent reference. The publication are referred to within the text of the basic design only. American Welding Society D1.1 D1.1 M 2010 errata. Structural Welding Code and Steel. ASTM International. ASTM E10 Brinal hardness of metallic materials. ASTM E110 independent 2010 Indonesian hardness of metallic materials and portable hardness testers. U.S. Department of Defense DoD Military Standard 1699 non-destructive evaluation of butt welds and crane railroad rails, published in 1992, revision B. Submittals. Note the review of the submittal description definition section 013300 submittal procedures edit. The following list reflected on all submittals required with the project. The guidance specification technical editors designation of those required with the government approval to the complexity critical with G general. The submittal with the items can be reviewed for the contractor quality control. Only add G to the item if the submittal is sufficiently important to complex context project. For the submittal requiring government approval, the Army Project Code up to 3 characters with the submittal G tags may be following with the G designation indicated with approval authority code for the Army projects using Resident Management System or RMS, the AE Architect Engineering or DO District Office. Section 341119.002.0020. Engineering Division and the other organization of district office, area office, residential office, or project office codes following the G typically are not usually Navy, Air Force, or NASA projects. Choose the first bracketed for the Navy, Air Force, NASA projects. Choose the second bracket for the item of the Army projects. Government approval is required for submittals with a G designation. Submittal having the G designation are contractor quality control approval information only. When used, the designation following the G designation identifies the officer that will review the submittal for the government. The following shall be submitted in accordance with Section 013300 submittal procedures. As standard directory 04 samples, operating qualification welds and procedure welds with S standard directory 06 test reports, ultrasonic tests, hardening test 7 AD 0 certification, certificate rails welding qualification, welder's procedure, cold welding procedure, wet weather welding procedure, correction, rail preparation, standard directory manufacturing inspection, thermite kit, standard directory 11 closeout submittals, welded joint records, submitting the record, required paragraph entitled joint records 1-3 quality assurances. Know the Thermite welding process kit has been developed in the following companies. There may be other processes available. The guidelines have been prepared with the process of the manufacturer in mind, with another manufacturer Thermite available for the vicinity of the activity as work of the perform modified with the guide of the specification necessary. U.S. Orgama Ther Incorporated, Lakehurst, New Jersey 08733, telephone 201-657-5781, and the Boet Process Do Welding Steel Products Company 360, Scott Street, Elk Grove Village, Illinois 600. 007, telephone 312-439-3630. Use only qualified procedure personnel. Procedure personnel previously qualified in accordance with the specification shall not require the qualification provided with the qualifications have not lapsed and the qualification records are available. 131. Operator qualification. The contractor shall note that the contracting officer writing in the 1 week prior to the qualification of weld, the operator shall qualify the welding of one acceptable rail joint in accordance with the qualified procedure. This qualification may be accomplished either by prior production welding on the first of the joints to be welded with the works at the worksite. The welding operator qualification conducted with the worksite performing the further welding and the qualification weldments have been accepted by visual inspection, ultrasonic test, written approval of the acceptable of the welded joint should be obtained with the contracting officer prior to the continuing of the welding operator qualification shall be effective from the test date and will remain effective for a period of 1 year. 132. Acceptable welds. Show those welds that meet visual inspection ultrasonic test required military standard 1699. Welds selected with the testing brinal hardness shall meet the requirements of the ASTM E10 paragraph entitled hardness testing. 133. Procedure qualification. 1331. Written procedure. Prepare for the welding process to be used. The procedure shall include the information specified in the paragraph entitled submittals as well as the particular of the process deemed pertinent to the successful completion of the welds. 1332. Manufacturing procedure. No separate qualification is necessary for the various rail weights, and although in order to qualification of specific rail weight of the cross-section, procedure shall include the fit of the requirements and other features unique to the rail weight and over the cross-section of the rail to be welded. 133. Welding procedure qualification. Provided with the welding procedure qualification records acceptable contracting officer approval of previous qualification under the specification, the record shall include the information specified in the paragraph entitled submittals as well as the particulars on the process demand pertaining to the successful completion of the welds. B. Welding procedure not previously qualified under the specification be qualified provided with the consecutive accepted welded rail joints. Acceptable welds is defined as welds that have been visually inspected, ultrasonically tested, and have been accepted in accordance with the military standard 1699 ASTM E10. Qualification must be accomplished either by stop of the fabrication joints of the first or the four joints welded at a worksite. If the procedure qualification accomplished with the worksite, perform no further welding until the qualification weldments have been accepted by visual inspection, ultrasonic test, obtain the written approval of the acceptance of the four welded joints for the contracting officer prior to the continuing of the welding. The ambient temperature welding procedure should be considered with qualified for the use of the ambient temperature of 10 degrees Celsius and 50 degrees Fahrenheit, and with regardless for the ambient temperature during the welding of the qualification assemblies, no welding should be conducted below 10 degrees Celsius and 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Without specifically qualified procedures qualified for the use of the ambient temperature less than 10 degrees Celsius and 50 degrees Fahrenheit should be qualified with the welding test assembly in accordance with the procedure qualification requirements of the specification and desired minimum ambient temperature plus or minus the degree of 1 degree Celsius, 5 degrees Fahrenheit. Procedure with the qualified shall be considered with acceptable for the use of the minimum qualified ambient temperature above. Wet weather welding. When performing welding only during the dry weather, no welding will normally be permitted only on wet, showery, inclement days. However, if means are provided to protect the work area, welding or may be performed during other than dry weather. If approved by the contracting officer, welding is confined should comply with the American Welding Society D1.1, D1.1M to ensure adequate ventilation for personnel safety. 134 required data submit thermite kit manufacturing instruction recommendation covering the rail preheating treatment, thermite ignition, mold and removal, and furnishing. 135 welding procedure. Thermite kit manufacturer's name, kit size and designation. Thermite kit batch numbers of manufacturing date, welding procedure designation, name and number, size of the rail, section being joined and type of the rail, testing assembly identification number, result of non-destructive testing, the qualification of assembly, date of qualification test and the tested date. 136 required qualification weld submitted or operating qualifications as well as in accordance with the paragraph entitled with the operating qualification submit procedure qualification welds in accordance with the paragraph entitled welder procedure qualification including the rest of the ultrasonic test and the hardness test. Welder's quality certification procedure qualification may be substituted in pursuant to the paragraph entitled with the quality assurance. 1.4 delivery and storage. Delivery materials manufacture original unbroken packages contain plainly labeled with the manufacturer's name and the brand. 141 recipient inspection of all thermite weld kits should consist of visual inspection of the weld kit package, freedom from the damage of recording of the thermite welded mix match number and manufacturing date. Do not use the kit when it has been manufactured more than 2 years before the date of use, showing the signs have been wet. 142 material control. Some store materials in original package, keep it dry at all times until used. Part 2 products. 2.1 materials provided with the kit include the performed mold, thermite welding, thermite powder, wicking cord, luting material, all necessary material accessory needed to provide welded joint, rail joint per kit. Mold shall be factory made with moisture free of non-hygroscopic material. Part 3 execution. 3.1 sequence of operation. Performing the work is strict in accordance with the qualified procedure. 3.1 rail preparation. Cut the rails with the battered and cracked notch which contain bolt holes and these irregularities are removed. Rail surfaces shall be free dirt, loose, oxide, moisture of the face of the N4 approximately 1.25, 125 millimeters, 5 inches with the joint to be welded. Clean rail ends with the grinding of the wire brush. They use the torch to remove the grease, oil, and moisture from the corners with the procedure with the thermite manufacturer's instruction. Rail cut when necessary should be made by a saw cut method. Remove all burrs, remove all roll over edges, loose oxide before applying the mold. No flame cutting of the rails is permitted if the spaces between the mold and the rail is usually large. Unused and relayer rails. Fill the gap with a piece of wicking cord before luting the package. 3.12 realignment. Separate rails are recommended with the welding presses. Manufacturer align with the rails of both surface gauge and rails. Raise the rails joint to compensate with greater thermite contraction that occurs with the rail heated during the cool relatively to the web in the base regions. Measure the amount of the joint of the elevation from the 900 millimeters, 36 inches of the straight edge centered at the joint. The correct evaluation is obtained by the 2 millimeter 1/16 of an inch separate to the top of the rail, but the head of the bottom surface of the straight edge, but the bottom both ends. 3.13 placing molds. Attaching the mold to the rail and centered over the joint. Seal the molds with the rail with luting of the material according with the welding kit manufacturer instruction. Handle the luting material mixture of clay and sand so that none of the introduced into the welding chamber. Also that the center line mold coincides with the center line of the gap. Install the tapping of the plug of this gun's crucible. Pour in the prescribed amount of thermite mixture. 3.14 preheating rail ends in accordance with the manufacturer instruction recommendation. 3.15 ignition of thermite following manufacturer instruction recommendations. 3.16 mold removal following manufacturer instructions. 3.17 finishing following manufacturer instruction recommendation. No finishing required for the web at the base of the rail. Performing the final grinding when the rail had been cooled to the ambient temperature. Using under no circumstances should a cutting torch be used to remove excess welded material. 3.18 joint records provided with the record of the date and location of each of the weld made with the record should also include the rail type, the size, thermite manufacturer's name, thermite weld portion, batch number. Also provided with the record of non-destructive test and acceptance day 3.2 Inspection and testing. Visual inspection. 3.2.1 Each weld joint shall be inspected with the contractor after the removal of the mold, grinding over the removable excess material. The inspector should pay particular attention to surface cracking, lack of failures, and other surface irregularity. The contractor should correct and replace all defective welds, no additional cost for the government. The method of the correction shall approve by the contracting officer. 3.2.2 Non-destructive inspection. Inspection of the welded joint ultrasonic towns using the method of inspection acceptance of the prescribed military standard 1699. The contractor shall correct and replace all the defective welds and no additional cost for the government. The method of correction shall be approved by the contracting officer. All repairs of the defective welds should be ultrasonically inspected with the contractor using the method of inspection acceptance of the prescribed military standard 169. 3.2.3 Hardness test. Perform the brinal hardness test in accordance with the ASTM E10 and ASTM 110. The brinal hardness number is BHN of the weld for the rail for the distance of 150 millimeters, 6 inches on each side of the joint shall be greater than 250. If the heat affected with a distance not greater than 25 millimeters, 1 inch to each side of the joint, the brinal hardness number may be up to 20 points lower, except for the top of the rail, which shall be not less than 250. Check hardness on at least 10% of all the welds. Tests shall be performed on the randomly selected welds and directed by the contractor. End of section. Alright, this was the section table, Division 34, Transportation, UFD, Unified Facility Guiding Specification, Welding, Crane, and Railroad, Rail, Thermite, Mold.